This is actually what we're going to kind of go through today and talk about what's required of you as an agent in order to hold an open house that is compliant, I guess is the best word, with all of the directives and the CDC's guidelines. So who in here has held an open house since you've been told you could hold one? Anybody? I know Sandra, I know you have.
Yes, I have done 3 open houses already.
Okay, so 3 since the governor came out and said it was okay. How'd they go? Get any traffic?
The first one, we only had like 2 people, and we only had an open house one day. And my second one, it wasn't a busy area, so we had like about 7 people just come and looking at was neighbors and some people driving by. For the third one, we had an open house 2 days. The first day we had 3 people. The second day we had 2.
Good, so you're getting traffic.
We're getting traffic.
So I know a lot of people have said the fear is that we won't have anybody come through because they want to stay home and they don't want to be out in the general public. But I think it's important to point out that of the open houses that I've heard of so far, there are people attending. There are people who are showing up and coming to see the homes. Some of which are sellers in the neighborhood, just looking to see kind of just like any other seller would, right? And then of course there's buyers coming out. So what does it really take? And so Sandra, I'm not going to put you on the spot very many more times today, but a few more. But I want you to compare how you did your open houses to kind of what we cover today and see if you were compliant or not. I don't want you to say, oh, we didn't do that or we did do that. I don't want you to rat yourself out. I just, in your mind, kind of go, okay, did we do that or did we not do that? So who knows kind of what are some of the rules? Anybody have a sense of what some of the rules are for holding open houses?
One client group at a time.
Okay, one client group at a time.
Right.
So let's talk about that for just a minute. It's a little bit confusing. What's a client group?
The buyer and a spouse.
The buyer and who?
The buyer and a spouse and their realtor.
Okay, so it could be a buyer and a spouse. Can they not bring their kids?
They can.
Yeah, so they could bring their kids. What if it's an investor and they have partners? There's 2 of them. Could they both come? They're not married. They're not attached in any other way. They're business partners. Could it be business partners? It could be. So it's a group, but it's only one group at a time. I think that's what's important, is that you can only have one group at a time going through the property. So the question I've gotten quite a bit is, well, if I'm showing the house, if we're touring the house, how do I make sure nobody else walks in? Like, this is counterintuitive to us as realtors, because when we hold an open house, we just want them to keep coming through the door, right? But now it's kind of, we've got to slow that down. How do you do that?
You lock the door.
You can't lock the door.
Okay, you could lock the door. Might want to put a sign on the door that says, if locked, property is being shown, please wait, something like that, right? What is another way that you could keep other people from just barging in?
Set up in the garage.
Okay, that's one I hadn't thought of. And it's the temperature starting to get to a point you could physically do that. Like a month ago, I'd have said that's crazy talk, but you're probably right. That's a good way to do it. Okay, so 2 agents. You can have 2 agents, but only one agent can give the tour. Does that make sense? But one could man the door. Now we're going to talk about a couple of releases that should be signed while you're doing an open house. And so it makes sense to have 2, because one can be giving a tour while the other one is setting up the next group to be able to sign the releases and be ready to go on the next tour, if that makes sense. So so the other one was to put a table. So I don't know if you all noticed, but when you walk in here, there's this odd stainless steel table just pointing out from the bar, right? Why do we have that there? Slow people down, get them to sign in like they're supposed to at the office, right? Same concept at an open house. If you put a table that blocks the door, they walk in, the door's there, the sign says, please wait here, and then they can also start signing things. I think the best choice is probably 2 agents. A couple of reasons: safety, number one. Number two, I think it's more professional. I think it feels and looks more professional. This mask is going to drive me nuts all day. Sorry, I'm supposed to keep it on though. All right, so looking at your handout, page 1 at the bottom says, what are the current state limitations on conducting open houses and showings in Nevada? So I want you to keep in mind this is also for showings, not just open houses. These rules apply. So number 1, showings and open houses of a property may not take place with the occupant present. All right, so has anybody ever shown a home and the seller was there and they didn't leave? Or the tenant was there and they're sprawled out on the sofa watching the football game, right? So that can't happen anymore. Any occupant of the property must vacate the property while you're showing or doing your open house. Guys, I think this is a plus. I know it sounds a little, sounds like we got more things we got to do, but this is a plus. So anytime the house is vacant, people can walk around and talk freely about the home and not have to worry about the sellers overhearing what they're saying. And I think that just causes people to be more genuine and more outspoken while they're there. They could go in the backyard, sit in a chair. Most people have pets nowadays. I try to get them to take their dog for a walk, and that's good for them and the dog. But yeah, they don't have to leave the country. They just have to be outside the property. Showings of the property are limited to 1 prospective buyer and 1 real estate professional for both the seller and the prospective buyer at a time. So that actually says there's 2 agents that can be there at the same time, right? 1 for the buyer, 1 for the seller. So that's why I think having 2 agents at a time is probably a good idea, because it is allowed.
2 realtors and a lender as well? Is there a limit on that?
Nowhere in any of this paperwork does it say anything about a lender. Now, but you could say that the lender is there because they're there to help that particular client, then I think you're going to be safe. And let me say this out loud. I mean, if you're in violation of any of these things, it isn't much unless you get caught, right? It's when you get caught is when it's super expensive. And we need to do our part as realtors to do this the right way. I mean, I think it's important in today's world that we're doing it how the public thinks we should be doing it. And that is limiting the number of people that are there, doing it as per the guidelines. So if I was going to have a lender, I might have the lender man the front door and I would be the agent. And I think that's probably a smarter way to do it. But I think that's your call as the agent. Okay. If you got a courtyard or some way that you can do that, that works as well. Yeah. Nice tent in the driveway. All right. Tent in the driveway is not a bad idea. Why? Draws attention. People see it. People see a tent going up and they're like, oh, there's a tent going up. Like, why is that tent there? Then I got to go find out why the tent's there. That's how you're going to get people's attention, right? So it's not a bad idea. Just not, I guess, not a tent, but a canopy as it should be called, right? All right, so on to the next one. Wait, did we skip? No. Oh, sorry. It's 2-sided. The printer decided to go 2-sided today. All right, number 3, seller conducting an open house are responsible to ensure that there are no more than 1 prospective buyer. Now, this is if your seller is holding the open house on their own. Has anybody ever had that happen? Like the seller's gone, I don't want you to hold it, I'm going to hold it open. So for me, that's a little odd. I think that's there because when we had the rules that you couldn't hold open houses, sellers started to do them on their own. And so agents wouldn't be getting in trouble. And so they've added some verbiage about what so the seller's basically responsible to do everything that we're responsible to do. Sellers are encouraged to utilize appointments for in-person showings and open houses. I don't even understand why that's there, but of course we're going to try to set appointments as we do for a living. And that's really not an open house. If you've set an appointment, that's a showing, right? So number 5, real estate professionals are encouraged to utilize 3-dimensional interactive property scans, virtual tours, and virtual staging at the greatest extent possible. I don't know how this really applies to an open house because this is stuff that would be seen online. And I suppose that you could, at your tent in the driveway, have a virtual tour 3D that they could look at before they went into the property. It's not very practical, but I guess that might be what they're talking about there. Number 6, real estate professionals are encouraged to avoid in-person transactions and services in the greatest extent possible. Anybody have a sense of what that's about?
Writing that offer right there.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, we don't really.
I kind of get it because you're spending more time in the house trying to write an offer to get it accepted by whenever, if you have a deadline, and they're not wanting you to linger inside the house.
Okay. So the challenge I have with that is because we can only have one party in the house at a time. If we stayed in the house to write the offer, we'd basically be not letting anybody else in the property. So it makes sense that we would figure out a way to go outside of the property to write the offer, on the back patio, in the garage, someplace like that. So, I mean, and ultimately I love the positive thinking. That is what we want to do, is write an offer while we're there, right? So that makes total sense. Number 7, real estate professionals are required to ensure that all participants at in-person showings and open houses wear face coverings at all times, as provided by the previous directive, and must follow CDC guidelines for in-person showings and open houses. So it says they have to wear a mask. What about you? Do you have to wear a mask?
Yes.
Okay, so anytime somebody's there, you have to wear a mask while you're showing. The people coming in need to wear a mask. They need to wear the mask while they're in the property. What other CDC guidelines have there been that I'm not aware of?
Do they expect to stay like 6 feet away from people as we're touring them too?
Social distancing. If they're from the same family, I mean, there basically are no social distancing rules. They can be as close as they want. But yeah, that probably means that you're trying to stay in front of them, not in the same bedroom as they are while they're in there, that kind of thing. So keep your social distance. Try to keep your distance away. There's a good script there that says, what should I tell a client that's reluctant to hold an open house because they don't want people coming through their house? So you should read that. I mean, I think that's important stuff. You're gonna run into that. For the people that are online, let me see if I can get this to come back up. I want to show you where we got this paperwork from it, and even people that are here, you need to be able to get to this information. I never know my password when people are watching me. Sorry. Okay, so you're going to go to LasVegasRealtor.com. Everybody knows that's where you go pay your dues. That's the association's website. If you just go to the upper right corner to members, you go there and it'll have you log in. Your login is exactly the same login as, it's skipped the login page, but it's the same login as you would log into MLS with. So your public ID, mine's 213780, and then whatever your password is. And then right here at the top, I'm trying to move so you can see, right here above your picture, is that just a great picture or what? I mean, how did that even get in there like that? Right here, state and Nevada executive department. These are the important updated. If you click that, it'll take you to the bottom of the page. And here are all the documents that we're going over today. That's where they actually come from. So as you'll see, there's going to be some documents that need to be signed by people. And so this is where you can actually get copies of those. LVR is working on getting these put into transaction desks. They're just not in there yet. And it sounds like it's going to be a while. I'm not sure why, but he tippy-toes all the way over to the trash can and then jumps in the trash can when he gets there. All right, so this is where I got it from. So it's very simple to get, very easy. Everybody has access to it. All right, let's move on. There's some more scripts on the next page. If somebody asks this question, how do I answer that? Read through that stuff. I think some of that's pretty good information. Let's actually go all the way to this page, which is page 6. So the association is providing to you the document, and I like it printed in color better than black and white, that should be posted at every open house that you do. So you should have this printed. It should be taped to the outside of the door before they enter the property. That probably should be somewhere on your sign-up table as well. And it just basically gives them the guidelines of what they need to do to make sure that they keep themselves, risk-free as possible, I guess is the best way to put it. So that is here. It's called the pictogram sign right there at the bottom. So you can click on that, print that as many times as you want in color. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is called the COVID disclosure and release form for the seller. So if you're holding an open house, even if you're having a showing on the property, if anybody here have any listings? Yeah? How many of you had your seller sign this and you've put it in your SkySlope file?
Do you have to do a vacant house?
I don't know. What if somebody gets sick? I would say yes. I would say it says seller. It doesn't say seller excluding vacant properties. So if you have listings, Cynthia, your seller should have signed this.
Okay,
Did they?
they signed the other two, ours.
Okay. Same. So we do have the same COVID disclosures at signature, as long as they've signed some kind of COVID disclosure. Put it in your SkySlope file so we have a copy of it in case there's ever a problem, right? So this is the one supplied by LVR, and it has the property address at the top. One thing that I think is cool about it is number 4. Somebody tell me what that line@line.com is. That's an email address, right? Why are they requiring an email address? So if you read through this, it says that they're supplying an email address so they can be communicated at that email address, and it's the email address that they monitor. So if there is some type of outbreak, they can be notified through that email address, and they're giving that information to you so that you don't have to worry about that. This is kind of cool later in some of the later ones because it's a good way to gather accurate information as they walk through the door, right? So just to the last page, and then obviously at the bottom, it's got the seller's place for the seller to sign. Now I want to point out the very bottom of the page. It says broker/agent for buyer needs to initial. Broker/agent for the seller needs to initial, and then the seller needs to initial. When it says broker agent, you don't need to send that to your broker. That just means you as the agent are allowed to initial there for your client. You don't need to send that in or run into your broker's office and get them to sign that, okay? It could be either or, but you as the agent is sufficient for that. All right, so any questions about that? This is the release that the seller signs that basically says, I'm freely allowing you to let people into my home. And I'm saying here that I'm keeping it clean and that there's no known problems for COVID at this time. And it's just a disclosure to let them know that there is a chance that somebody with COVID could come in to their property, right? So any listing that you have, this should now be a part of your listing package, the listing paperwork that you get signed. This is a document that they should sign, whether it's ours or the one that's signature is actually provided. All right, let's go to the next one. How many people have listings that have a tenant in it right now? Anybody have a tenant occupied listing? Sandra has a tenant occupied. You guys wonder why I know what Sandra has. Sandra's on my team. Sandra, did your tenant sign this? No. All right. You weren't supposed to answer the question. It was rhetorical. All right. So same thing for the tenant, by the way. They're the occupant of the property, right? So the seller has signed it even though they don't live there. They've given the release. Now the tenant needs to sign one. And it's exactly the same thing. It's just saying, hey, I'm allowing free showings of my home, of the home I live in, and it's COVID-free as far as we know. And we know somebody could come in that may have COVID, and it supplies them with the place for their email address, which they promise to monitor. Why do you think it specifies that they promise to monitor this email address? Okay, so yeah, we want to make sure they get it. But how many people have 2 email addresses they use? Oh, you want me to sign up for something? Okay, I'll put this email address down. And then if I really want them to get a hold of me, I put this email address down. It's the same thing. We don't want the standard, I don't want to be contacted email address. We need, not that we just want, but we need in this case, their one that they monitor and that they could respond to a problem at. All right, so that's with your tenant. Here's the one that I think everybody will struggle with. The next page is the visitor release. So what I'm telling you is when somebody walks up to your open house and they want to view your open house, before they can, they should read, ask any questions they might have, get clarity on this disclosure, and then sign it. And then you should provide a copy of this in your SkySlope file. We need a copy of this in the file of anybody who came to your open houses. Okay, that's just there in case something happens in the future. And then I also think that you're required, let me just look one more time. I think you're required to share this with the seller. Yep, so the seller and or landlord needs to initial that they got a copy of it. Yeah, her eyes got like this big. Like this is a royal pain, right? So hopefully you set it up digitally, and after an open house on Saturday or whatever, you send out one digital thing that they just go through and initial each one. Hey, and it's good. It's not bad. I mean, it's a pain. I understand. It takes a lot of time. The good part is now you're forced by our government to communicate with your seller, which a lot of agents just don't do a very good job of. Like they don't let them know how many people came through the open house. They don't let them know what the feedback from the open house was. At least at this point, they're getting a copy of anybody who entered their home. And if there's ever a problem in the future, they have a record of that, right? So this is the one, as I said earlier, where you need to have somebody at the door that's manning the door, that can answer the questions, that understands exactly what it says, can answer questions, and can get this stuff signed. Could you get this stuff all signed digitally while you're at the open house? You could. I mean, you could have it set up digitally to just send it to their email address. Everyone gets them on their phone now, right? Have one copy there that they could read through and then say, okay, let's get this signed real quick. They could do it digitally on their cell phone. That will save you a lot of printing and scanning and all that good stuff. So you could do it digitally as well. There's no requirement for non-digital. Yes.
Question online. Can just the agent provide an email address and open house? I went to do a showing with clients this weekend. There was an open house going on. We both signed the COVID release. I said I would do the sign and give my email. Do our buyers have to supply their email to open house?
The buyer absolutely has to supply their email address. Why are we collecting email addresses? Tracking. It's just about tracking. It's the same reason why you sign in here every day. It's not because we don't know your names and we don't know your phone numbers. We do, but it's dated and timed because, and I'll give you a perfect example. There's an agent that, what if an agent walks into an office on a day, say Friday, and then they find out on Saturday that they start feeling sick and they go get tested, they are positive. How do we have to be able to get a hold of anybody that person may have come in contact with, and we do that with that list. Knock on wood, we haven't had to do that yet, and I hope we don't have to do that. But that's why, so yes, buyer absolutely has to put their email address, and it has to be an email address that they monitor. Does that answer the question? Okay, good. No? I thought you had a question. You're just eating. Or any questions at this point, by the way? Yes.
Does visitor only pertain to the open house, or is that visitors as far as showings as well?
Showings as well. These guidelines are for open houses and showings. So anytime you have a showing,
That have come to your open house, you're supposed to get them to sign this prior to them coming and showing the listing.
yep, if you have somebody who registers or calls you or sets up a showing to go to your property, they should send over this release from their buyer prior to showing the house. It just got worse, huh? And let me just turn it the other way. Any properties that you show, you should be providing both of these documents to the listing agent prior to showing the home. I'm really sorry. I didn't make the rules. I'm just telling you what the government's asking us to do. And again,
It's not good enough that your lockbox collects the data of who enters into the property. You have to have them fill out this form.
yeah, the challenge is it only collects your information. It doesn't collect the buyer's information. So, yes.
For each individual then, right?
No, I think for me, if I'm showing it to a family of 5, the dad probably does it or the mom does it. I don't think we need to have all the kids, because if somebody in that group, if that family group was to get sick, we would know that it was when they were there. So, and somebody would notify. Does that make sense? I think it's just one release. I think it can all be done digitally. I don't think you need to do it. Now, let me be really clear. What should happen and what will happen will be two different things. And so if you have a listing and you've had a discussion with your seller and your seller absolutely wants this or they're not going to show the home, and that should be a part of your consult. You should be consulting with your client prior to going live about how they feel about COVID and what they think is important. And here's what we provide as an industry. This is industry-wide. And here's what should happen. Do you want that? Now, as you know, anything a seller tells us to do that's legal, we probably should do our best to do it. Now, you may have a seller that says, I want one from every single person, or they can't look at my house. You may have a seller that says, let's put them on the table by the front door and they can just sign them when they get here. That's an option as well. They don't have to send prior to showing. You could leave them with gloves and hand sanitizer, which we haven't got to yet, which you're going to need to have for all of your open houses and should be at the front door of all of your listings. And they could sign it all right there and leave it right there. Does that help? So I did suggest digital. I think I suggest that because I'm not the one that has to set up all the digital stuff on my team. I have somebody else that does that. And so it's really easy for me. And I know that it's not really easy for every agent. So, but leaving them at the door is another option. Please fill out before walking through the property. All right, so any more questions? Brandon, nothing else online? All right, so we're going to go to this last page, COVID prevention plan for showings. So this is actually the plan put together. It was collaborated between the CDC rules, what the governor wanted, what the AG's office wanted, and then between the realtor. I think a little bit of Chris Bishop and his group with the Nevada Association of Realtors had a little input on this, on what we should be doing, like what is our prevention plan? How do we try to make sure COVID doesn't spread during showings and during open houses? Yours isn't, but mine has red on it. So I like this printed in color because there's little red things, which anytime I see red on a page, I need to pay attention to what that says, right? So the first one is right at the top. It says showing rules for listing and buyer agents. If any of you are holding a non-traditional open house in compliance with COVID prevention plan for showing prevention plan, you can read through all that, right? I mean, it's very self-explanatory. I really want to talk about at the bottom of the page, the very last one where it's kind of bolded. Does somebody want to read that out loud that can speak loudly? Okay. Only listing agent, the buyer's agent, and one buying party of no more than 4 people are to be in the dwelling at the same time during a showing. So there is a limitation, just like when you go to a restaurant and the most you can sit is 6 people at a table right now. Ours is, I don't know if you get that, but it's also 6. Buyer's agent, listing agent, and 4 people from their family. So that's the limitation. And it goes on there to explain what buying party might include or how it might look, but it's basically 4 people who are interested in buying the property that all know each other. It reiterates about halfway down the page there that houses may not be shown with an occupant present. I think that's actually, like I said, I think that's a good thing. I think you should try to get as many people out of the house as you can. The other one's about sellers holding open houses. I hope that's not happening. That's what they hire us for. All right, the next one, let me see here. So then the next one talks about physically distancing, reminding people they need to stay physically distanced, keep their mask on. Real estate professionals must require all participants at in-person showings and open houses to wear face masks, coverings at all times. Real estate professionals are encouraged to avoid in-person transactions. So they're just reiterating the stuff that was in the first disclosure they put out, which is typically what we're good at, is saying the same thing 3 times. All right, the next one, halfway down page 2, is cleaning and disinfecting the property and sanitation products. This is something you need to read very closely because you as the agent are responsible to make sure that there are cleaning, disinfecting agents at the property. Even if it's an occupied property, you're responsible to have hand sanitizer there. You're responsible to have gloves there. You're responsible to maybe even have temporary masks. That's on the agent. That's not on the seller. All right. So even with your vacant properties, table by the front door with some things on there to help keep it clean. What are some other things we can do to help keep it clean? By the way, let me point this out. The reason why my understanding and what I was told, not that I agree with it, what I was told was why the government held back so long on letting us do open houses was because they were afraid that we couldn't keep the houses clean and it would just turn into a place for people to catch COVID rather than us sanitizing it. So they're kind of past that now. This is, as you can see, some of the rules that they have. What can we do to kind of keep a house clean though? Like what's our level of responsibility there? Vacant or occupied, either one, if you're holding an open house. Say it again. Okay, so wear your mask and then spray sanitizer or some kind of cleaner on surfaces. Doorknobs, okay. Light switches, right? People typically touch light switches. What else? Say it again. Gloves, right? So have gloves there that people can wear. Wear gloves yourself. What else? Okay, so here's my suggestion. When you're holding an open house, the very first thing you should do when you get there, turn on every single light in the house. Even the lights inside the closets, the doors are closed on, okay? And open every single door. Closet doors get open so they're all the way against the wall so they don't take up space in the room. But the lights are on. Every fan is on. Every light in the house is on. Fans should be turning slowly, just like the fans are turning in here. Don't have the fans turning super fast. That deters from the showing. Every blind should be open. Like there should be nothing in the house that somebody would be tempted to walk up and touch and or try to open. It should already be done. Now, there are always going to be things that people want to play with, and you're probably going to have to pay attention and re-sanitize those things. And sanitize all the places where people touch prior to the open house. And then as you're holding the open house, you got to pay attention to where people are doing. And if they have a 3-year-old that, sprawls out across the sofa, you probably got to wipe the sofa down, right? So you just have to be conscious of those things as you're showing the house as an open house, right? So turning lights on, opening doors, making sure there's nothing anywhere in the property that somebody would have to do. Now let me ask this, what about just a showing on occupied property? How do they get ready for that? Exactly the same way. The instructions to the sellers are you're having a showing, please open all the doors, please turn on all the lights, turn on your fans, open up the blinds, right? Don't give somebody a reason to go through your house and start touching a bunch of things. If they're on, they don't need to touch. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to remind buyer's agents at our listings, please advise your clients not to touch a bunch of things. Hands in pockets is a good policy right now. And look, I've got 2 4-year-old grandsons, and they love to do one thing, and that's touch everything they can touch, right? I got this really nice fireplace in my house, and it's got every square inch has got fingerprints on it because they just love to go up there and touch it, right? Even my 4-year-old grandsons, who have looked at a lot of houses with me during this pandemic, can keep their hands in their pockets. They get it, they understand it, they wear their masks, they're good about it. As adults and older children, it shouldn't be that difficult to get people to keep their hands in their pockets and walk through the property. And if there is something they want to see in addition, just let them do it, but make sure you sanitize it afterwards, all right? So again, this cleaning and disinfecting section is what's caused open houses not to be allowed for a long time. And this cleaning and disinfecting section is what will close open houses down if we don't do a good job of cleaning and disinfecting. Okay, so if you get nothing else from today, have some 409 with you, have some type of cleaning product, some rags, some paper towels, something that you can go through the house and disinfect it the best you can. And then the bottom one there, rules for every visitor. Prior to entering a property, all persons entering the property, including but not limited to, and including the property's buyers, agents, inspectors, appraisers, contractors. It doesn't say lenders, but it says etc., so I'm going to add lenders. Must sign a COVID release and deliver it to the listing agent. It doesn't say should, it says must. Right, so again, we understand how this goes. Not everyone's going to do it, but we should do our best to get as many as we can. By signing the COVID release, the visitor is agreeing to both the rules of entry and the preventative plan. All visitors must maintain 6 feet of physical separation between unrelated persons. So if they're related, there's no separation, but anybody unrelated. All visitors must wear face coverings. They should be given the option to wear disposable gloves. So gloves are not a must, but they're a should. So you probably should have some gloves there for people to put on. Accommodations should be made for individuals who cannot wear a face covering or a face shield because of medical conditions or medical limitations. So what does that look like? Somebody rolls into your open house and says, I can't wear a face mask. I've got... is it OPC? Yes, I was going to say, yeah. So they can't wear a face mask. What do you do? Kick them out. That's an option. That's not suggested, but that is an option for sure. Yeah, I think you just be a little more careful, right? You let them in. You absolutely keep your 6 foot distancing from them. I would probably have them write that on their release. I am unable to wear a face mask due to whatever that is, and make sure that gets into my SkySlope file because that's where it will be kept as a record for a long time. But I think you still show it. I think you just have to give them a little more space. All visitors must use hand sanitizer and wash their hands immediately upon entering and putting on disposable gloves. Okay, this is one I really struggle with. They got to wash their hands immediately upon coming into the property. That's just not feasible. I mean, now they're touching things, they're messing up my open house. It's not feasible. That's why I lean more towards the gloves. Right, here's some hand sanitizer, great, and throw on some gloves, and that probably would cover me the best. Then the last one, all visitors avoid touching knobs, faucets, toilets, toilet handles, light switches, and it keeps going all the way down. So that last one right there is a good indication of all the things you should make sure are sanitized prior to your open house starting, and keep sanitizing them as you go through your open house. If that makes sense. Okay, any questions?
What if you have somebody that will not sign a release?
They cannot come in your open house.
Okay.
Honestly.
Some people are just dicks.
Yeah, you're not going to do it, great. Can't let you in. Go talk to the governor and see if he'll get you a pass because you're special, but can't let you in. Sorry. I mean, again, this is about, let me make this really clear to you guys too. I'm not a rules follower per se. Like I want to do the things I need to do that make sense, but like wearing this mask just freaking drives me crazy. And I still have to wear it because as people walk into this office every day, if the broker doesn't have his mask on, what does that look like, right? That's not a good thing. So it's the same in the general public. You're realtors, you're real estate agents, you represent our industry, you represent our brokerage, and we just need to follow these rules, even though 98% of them I think I wouldn't follow. Like if I'm at an open house and they wouldn't sign a release, I'd let them in. That's why I don't do open houses, I guess, right? Because just understand that it's not comfortable, it's not fun, it's not what we would like to be doing, but at the same time, it's what's best for your livelihood today. It's going to change over time. We'll probably not have to wear masks in 2023. I don't know. I mean, it may take a little while, but it's what's best. Yeah, yeah. I hope he's not. Is he out of office by then? Oh, we got to vote them out, huh? Never mind. 2023? I hope so. So just understand that these rules are put in place so that we can continue to conduct business on a day-to-day basis. That's what it's about. It's not about whether we agree with them, whether we don't agree, whether we think they're stupid, whether they make any sense. They're just here so that we can conduct business. And I don't know about you, but conducting business is what's important to me because that's how I make my money. And if I don't have the money, I can't support my family. So do the things that you got to do it the right way. And I think that alone, I also, here's my other perspective is if somebody walks into an open house and you're doing it the right way, and I promise you, people that are going to open houses have got online, they have found the directive from the governor, they have found the rules of an open house, they know what should be happening when they walk in. And if you're following the rules, they're twice as likely to use you as an agent than if you weren't. Now, there's also the people out there that are 100% against all the directives, and you'd have to not be following it for them to work with you. I'm just telling you, it's better for you if you're following the rules, doing it the way that the governor wants it done for the time being. We will get back to a time when we can do it other ways, but there's things to learn from this too, right? I think there's a lot of people. I've never put hand sanitizer on before, but I do it 4 or 5 times a day now. I'm not sure why I do it, but I do. Any questions? Any comments? Yes, sir.
What's the repercussion? What's the fees look like if you're non-compliant right now?
So I'm not aware of anybody yet that has been fined for not doing these things. Like, I'm not aware of anybody that's gotten caught. Brandon, have you heard of anybody?
No, but I think the problem would be if we don't follow the rules, you'll lose the opportunity to open houses again.
Yes.
Go back.
My concern is not about the open house. It's about the people that I'm allowing to show my listing that haven't had this documentation.
Well, they didn't come today. As you can see, there were only 10 of you here. So no, I'm just joking. No, I think it's just communication. I mean, you need to communicate with the other side.
That the people visiting the property had to sign this release.
Yeah.
Open houses.
This visitor form came out since open houses were put back in. But there's always been the seller and the buyer releases. So if a buyer is going to a property, not the agent, the buyer is going to preview. That's always been in place for showing homes.
But I don't think it's required, but it's highly recommended. I don't think it's, you don't have to have it, you should have it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we said that. I mean, there's nowhere where it says if they don't fill it out, they can't look at the property. And if they're a visitor at an open house, it's required that they sign that and give a good email address, or that's a requirement. But a buyer looking at a property that's a showing, it's not required per se, but it's the best practice. I think it says should, not must. What else? He's going to find where it says what it says.
Do you recommend that we go any buyers that have looked at our listings and have them fill this out? Or,
Say that again?
So I got a listing that was up for, 2 months. People were looking at it. Should I go back and
Yes.
ask them to sign it?
Yes, please.
All right.
Second to the last page, rules for every visitor. Says must sign a COVID release form. Buyers, agents, inspectors, appraisals, contractors, etc.
Is that on the showing and open house page? That's the last page you're looking at, right?
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't say.
Yeah, that's part of the prevention plan for showings. So based on that, it says must. I would say they need to sign it. Again, I would have this conversation with your seller, right? If the seller's like, I want you to show my house to every single person, whether they sign that or not, you'll act accordingly. Okay,
20-some odd people that saw my listing already.
what else? Well, and that's going to be one of the challenges is there's so many showings on every property right now that if you're priced right, you're getting, would you tell me you've had 12 on that property already? 10 or 12? I mean, yeah, it's a challenge, no question about it. And we should be asking for it. What's going to protect you and your seller is that you asked for it. If you asked for it and they didn't deliver it and they still went and looked at the property because it's vacant, you can't control what they do. But if you don't ask for it, that's when the liability jumps into your lap.
Should we put an agent remarks?
Sure. Yeah. You could add it as a document as part of your listing, which I don't think you should need to do, but
In the showing app, like Showtime, that you can make it request automatically when they log into the lockbox or they request a showing. If we could automatically send that to them, to the agent.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know Showtime. I don't use Showtime, so I don't know it that well. Again, I think for your protection and your seller, it's about you asking for it and asking for it twice if you need to ask for it twice. If they show it and they didn't provide it, then that's going to be on them. And that's better than being on you. What else? Questions? How many people have scheduled an open house for this week? Who's going to schedule an open house this week? All right. Well, get out there and do some open houses. I think there's some. We do. Yeah, we have some here you can use. Aaliyah or Persia. Yeah, they'll go, I don't know, and they'll say go talk to Todd, but we'll figure it out. Here's the other thing I'll tell you. If their buyers are out in the market looking at open houses, they're more serious of a buyer than they were before COVID happened. Okay? So there's value in open houses because the buyers that are out there right now are probably more serious about buying than they have been in the past. Open houses have always been kind of a pastime. Oh, we got an hour before we got to be at church. Let's stop at this open house, right? Now, I don't think that's the sense anymore. I think nowadays it's anybody who's out there walking through houses that they don't own are probably pretty serious about buying houses. So be more aggressive with your question asking and getting people the right offers. Cool. Anything else? All right. Thanks for coming. Hope you got something out of it.
Thank you.
Hope somebody online got something.